and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Tomorrow's papers and Jubilee scones, courtesy of producer Rebecca. That's right, we've got big stories from tomorrow's papers tonight in the company of the brilliant comedians, the one and only Jonathan Cogan and Andrew Doyle. I'll see you after the headlines with Bethany.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The Prince of Wales has paid tribute to the Queen at the Platinum Jubilee concert, thanking her for a lifetime of service. Prince Charles also spoke of his late father, the Duke of Edinburgh, who said he was there in spirit. As 22,000 are gathered outside Buckingham Palace for the concert and many more thousands are enjoying street parties across the country, the future king said the outpouring of warmth and affection over this whole Jubilee weekend is our way of saying thank you. From your family, from the country, from the Commonwealth, in fact, he said, from the whole world. Princess Anne represented the Queen, who's been experiencing mobility problems at the Epsom Derby today. The Queen watched the event on TV from Windsor Castle. 40 of the Queen's jockeys, past and present, lined up in a guard of honour for the royal party ahead of the races. And Desert Crown won, giving trainer Sir Michael Stoute his 6th success in the Derby. The race was delayed, though, due to pro-vegan climate activists who ran onto the track. In other news, Ukraine has says it's pushing back Russian troops in the eastern city of Severodonetsk, which Moscow has been targeting for days. It's the first time Kyiv has claimed to have launched a big counterattack in the strategic industrial city, which is the focus of a Russian offensive to take the eastern Donbass region. The governor of Luhansk said Russia has been blowing up bridges across the area's main river to prevent Ukrainians from bringing in military reinforcements. Ukrainian authorities say they've taken back control of around half of the city. It's widely reported that one of the main suspects in the murder of former Russian spy and Kremlin critic Alexander Litvinenko has died of COVID-19. Dmitry Kovtun has died in hospital in Moscow. A UK inquiry ruled he was one of 2 men who poisoned Mr. Litvinenko at a hotel in 2006, and that it's likely they acted on behalf of the Russian security service. And flight delays and cancellations at airports across the country over the half-term has continued today as EasyJet cancelled at least 20 flights. The budget airline also confirmed dozens of flights were delayed at London's Gatwick Airport. EasyJet apologised and said passengers were informed either last week or overnight of their options to rebook or receive a refund. British Airways, Wizz Air and Vueling also cancelled or delayed flights from Gatwick. On TV, online, in DAB plus radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to headliners.
I'm Mark Dolan and welcome to Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers in the company of 2 top comedians. Tonight, the brilliant Jonathan Cogan and Andrew Doyle. Gentlemen, great to have you on the programme. We'll get to the front pages shortly, but you clearly didn't get the memo about dinner suit.
I knew there was something. Do I look too shabby for this show?
Either that or you're both militant Republicans.
Well, I don't own a suit, so this is the best I can do.
Yeah. And you've obviously just come back from a court appearance, Andrew.
Well, exactly. I mean, you've just gone overboard with the tie and it makes us look bad, doesn't it?
Well, as you know, I don't do the undersell.
You really don't, no.
As we're about to discover over the next 60 minutes. Let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages, and we will start with the Sunday Telegraph. Queen's tea time treat for the nation. A brilliant photograph of the Queen having tea with none other than Paddington Bear. That's what I call a VIP. Surprise performance with Paddington Bear that not even her family knew about launches the Platinum Party at the Palace. Mummy, you laugh and cry with us. You've been there for us. Thank you. The moving words of her son, Prince Charles. The Independent next. Britain's changing relationship with the royals. That's an opinion piece on the front page of The Independent, accompanied by an arresting photograph of the Mall, chock full of thousands of people celebrating the Queen's Jubilee and, of course, those previously controversial but seemingly now very à la mode Union flags. Labour targets Johnson on levelling up agenda is the political story on the front page of The Independent. Meanwhile, where should we go next? Let's have The Observer. With a true party of patriotism, says Labour. Labour has staked a bold claim to be the true party of patriotic Britain and the best of British values, as 4 days of nationwide celebrations to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee draw to a close this evening. Senior Labour Party figures said Boris Johnson, who was booted outside... I'm going to put my teeth back in here. Senior Labour Party figures said Boris Johnson, who was booed outside St Paul's Cathedral on Friday, was no longer seen by the public as a leader who upholds the British standards of integrity, decency and honesty. A long weekend and a carnival of memory. From Stonehenge to the Mall, The Observer reflects on 4 days of Jubilee celebrations. OK, Mirror next. Rock and Royal. Brian May kicks off the Platinum Party at the Palace. Meanwhile, the Sunday Express, thank you for being there for us, Mummy. Once again, the words of Prince Charles about his mother, our monarch, the Queen, who celebrates 7 decades on the throne. And last but not least, the Daily Star Sunday, party time for Her Madge, and showbiz exclusive. Gemma, I've been wooed by a new man. Gemma Collins got cosy with a new fella, a ghost. The Towie star called in a medium after odd goings-on at her gaff. But the spirit was happy to live with the GC. And those are your front page headlines. Jonathan, let's start with The Observer and Labour making a bold claim.
Yeah, so this may come as a bit of a shock, but Labour says it is now the true party of patriotism and British values. Now, I think this is said in response to the fact that Boris Johnson has been booed recently, and the Shadow Minister says we're standing up for UK institutions, implying that the Conservatives are no longer doing this. Now, this to me seems like a very strong and bold rebrand from the Jeremy Corbyn days, where he wanted to abolish the monarchy, and he wouldn't sing the national anthem. So, I don't know if this is they've just sort of licked their finger and gone with the breeze and thought this is what people want now, or maybe they genuinely mean it. I'm not sure.
Yes, it seems, doesn't it, that the Labour Party, as a party, have a love-hate relationship with the flag, don't they, Andrew?
Yes, they absolutely do. And these kind of gestures that they occasionally perform don't really resonate. You remember the one, I think it was when Ed Miliband was in charge, and the mug, they put that Labour is tough on immigration on this mug, which you could then buy. And it really backfired with their core voter base. So, I don't know how well this is going to do, because this is a Tory motif, isn't it, that they're sort of attempting to seize. But this is because of Lucy Powell, who's the Shadow Secretary of State for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, was talking about, she's written this piece. And she says here, I'm quoting here, she says that Labour's the party that stands up for much-loved British institutions, including the BBC and Channel 4, which the Tories want to undermine in pursuit of a series of ideological culture wars.
Is it the Conservatives pushing those?
No, it's Labour, because if you think about it, we've had Keir Starmer kneeling for BLM, you've had Jeremy Corbyn announcing his pronouns, charging white people an extra tenner when he gave a speech in Loughborough. You've had Stella Creasy this week saying that a woman can be born with a penis. So the culture wars are very much being waged predominantly
Labour Party
by the
Conference chair saying, can we have fewer white men answering questions, please?
Right, but this is a really standard tactic in the culture war. Is the chief antagonists of the culture war, the culture warriors, will be the ones who either deny that it exists or claim that the people are sort of saying to them, hang on a minute, what are you talking about? That they're the culture warriors for responding to their culture war. This is the oldest trick in the book.
That's classic
really
gaslighting.
Total
the old
gaslighting.
switcheroo, yeah.
Although that is one of their words, isn't it, gaslighting?
Oh, yeah, that's why we've done it back to them.
Exactly, So it's just a lot of finger pointing. This is just, it's ludicrous. But it's interesting what you said about Johnson being booed, and Powell mentions this as well, that because Johnson is being booed, that shows, she says it here, that people no longer see him as having the standards necessary to lead the country. Of course, it doesn't say that. It says that particular group of people who booed him didn't much like him. That's about it. We don't do politics with a clapometer, do we?
Well, no, that's right. And you could argue that Brexit was an act of patriotism by those that voted for it, and therefore Labour will struggle to define themselves as the patriotic party, given that their leader was the architect of the second referendum policy, which effectively sought to reverse Brexit.
Yeah, that was well, that's why Keir Starmer is unelectable, I think, because 70% of Labour constituencies voted Leave. And then you've got the architect of the so-called people's vote, as though the people didn't vote the first time. Another example of gaslighting. So he's never going to resonate with that. He's never going to be able to rebuild that red wall. It's hopeless. They're going to have to get someone else in.
Oh, there you go. Moving on to our next story now, Sunday's Mirror, and protesters are at it again, throwing themselves under horses, Andrew.
Yeah, this is an odd one. This is in the Mirror, and it's talking about these. This is at the Epsom Derby, and a number of female protesters lay on the ground. They were drawn away within a matter of minutes, because it's very dangerous to lie on a track when the horses are running.
Both for them and the horses.
For everyone concerned. You know, these are hefty beasts, and they can cause damage.
You're talking about the horses? Or
no, sorry. Yes, I was talking about the horses.
Fair enough.
But they were dragged off.
I like to think it was like it's just a drunk hen party that
got out of control.
Yeah, we're protesting. That's always my excuse.
It could have been weirdly, this article doesn't say what they were protesting for. This is the Mirror's account.
I think it was a vegan climate something.
It was.
I mean, that's just a guess, but I think it was.
Well, it was because I went a step forward than guessing, and I actually Googled it to check.
Fair enough.
Because I did my research. You know, I've been in this game a while.
Don't make a habit of it.
No. We'd rather be vague. These were environmental activists. They call themselves Animal Rebellion. They've got a policy that they want the royal lands to be seized and used for rewilding. So they have this sort of utopian fantasy where we mingle with the wolves and the apes and the animals and everything else. This is obviously, it's weird in this article they don't mention the obvious resonance, which is Emily Davison in 1913, who threw herself at the King's horse at the Derby and was killed as a result. And we don't know if she was trying to kill herself or she was trying to pin the suffragette colours to the horse. But this is obviously very, you know, these were women who didn't have the vote. The suffragette movement was a massively important movement. It's not quite clear what this lot are about.
BLM riots, Extinction Rebellion, XR. Are we now pursuing policy through protest? Whatever happened to elections and that kind of stuff?
Well, I'm a big fan of protest, peaceful protest that doesn't get in the way of other people's lives, that doesn't infringe on other people's rights. This could actually have caused serious damage and possibly a fatality. So I think this is not something I would support. But absolutely, if they want to stand somewhere with their placards and shout about things, then
is this sort of militant direct action going to become the way we do politics going forward?
Yeah.
Because if so, I think we've got a problem.
We have a problem because people don't understand the concept that they could be wrong. That's something we've lost. We've seen this with every major vote we have. You know, after the Tories won the last election, people are out there protesting, saying, "Not my Prime Minister." It's like, no, we have a thing called losers' consent.
Yeah.
He is your Prime Minister. By all means, campaign for next time and try and get him out. But this is it is a worrying debate. I see what you're saying is that actually this is, rather than protesting some massive injustice, people are protesting the fact that they didn't get their way in a democratic society.
But also it's the manner. It's not like the Iraq war, the big demonstrations against the Iraq war.
Yeah.
1 million people walked through central London. It's just attacking, statues. I don't quite know the context of the attack on the Mona Lisa this week. But it just seems...
That was a climate thing, I think.
Was it climate as well?
Yeah, or he just hated Da Vinci? I'm not sure.
So, I think there's an important distinction between the right to protest and free speech, and, we're all champions of that here, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But breaking the law, disrupting people's lives, doing dangerous things, that's not...
Have a conversation. Yeah. Don't just sort of... mindless vandalism.
But by tolerating, the breaking of the law, by asking Extinction Rebellion protesters or Insulate Britain protesters if they want a cup of tea or if they'd like a sandwich whilst they've glued themselves to a motorway, have the police brought this on themselves by not having a zero-tolerance policy to breaking the law?
Well, clearly, if you're smashing up glasses at a bank, you're breaking the law, and that shouldn't be tolerated. That guy
and yet it was, right?
It was. Yeah, it absolutely was. And that guy smeared cake on the Mona Lisa, but because it did absolutely nothing because it was a bulletproof glass.
I think it improved it. It's a disappointing painting.
You're not a fan, are you? Because the smile is too ambiguous for you.
Well, yeah, once they got the foam, I thought it was the first time she had smiled, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because she wanted to be smeared in cake?
A little bit. That's always been my imagination, anyway.
Your fantasies are quite perverse.
She's a bit grumpy, isn't she, the old Mona Lisa?
Apparently it's Da Vinci...
Get over yourself, dear.
It's Da Vinci in a wig, right?
No, that's what I
it's
heard.
absolutely not.
Is that not true?
No.
Well,
I saw that on Twitter once. I think it's true.
I think she's the first trans art subject in history, isn't she?
She was
It's a he.
I believe she was
Dave.
I believe she was a nun, or at least lived at a convent for a while. I know that they found remains that purport to be hers at a convent in Florence relatively recently.
Fair enough.
Well,
That's the substance of my knowledge on that.
there you go. The only smile that's more ambiguous is that of our own Andrew Doyle. Sunday's Telegraph, and there's trouble in Trafalgar, Jonathan.
Yes, so a bit of excitement here. Police evacuate Trafalgar Square over suspicious vehicle. So the police evacuated Trafalgar Square in central London on Saturday morning amid concerns over a suspicious vehicle. However, the police said it wasn't terrorism related. So that makes me wonder what was so suspicious about this vehicle, that there was an alleged controlled explosion to deal with it.
Yeah.
What was going on there? Was it just a particularly suspicious-looking car?
They just didn't like the car, so they blew it up.
Yeah,
it's quite militant.
It was a
isn't
Tesla, yeah.
This is a weird article, isn't it? Because it gives no details.
Nothing at all.
It just says that it wasn't terrorism related. OK, well, what was it then? Do a bit of research, Telegraph. I want to know more.
Exactly.
It might have been very dirty. Perhaps it was used for dogging. I mean, there are lots of possible scenarios here, aren't there?
It's too vague. It's a bit of a non-article because it just doesn't tell us anywhere near enough.
I like to think that someone just left their car there, didn't think about it, and it just got exploded.
I'm gutted it wasn't my knackered 12-year-old Prius.
Yeah, but I don't think you'd be covered by insurance for that.
Is that right?
No, I think if the police perform a controlled explosion...
Drat.
I don't think that's...
Oh, dear.
That counts.
Whoops. If the cops are watching, it wasn't my car. Let's move on now to Sunday's Guardian, which is commonly known as The Observer. And it looks like the face of terror is changing, Andrew.
Yeah, this is psychologists and behavioural scientists are saying that... it is said that psychologists and behavioural scientists need to be deployed more often when it comes to analysing the terrorist threat. And all of this is down to a new kind of terrorist. You know, back in the I almost said good old days, but I didn't mean that. But if you look at, like, the way old terrorist groups were structured, the IRA, Al-Qaeda, it's actually a top-down kind of leadership body that wouldn't... I mean, you would never have the IRA deliberately... getting people who are mentally unstable or have psychological problems to perform their acts. It was very much a regimented structure. Yeah. But we have a new kind of terrorist, which is the lone terrorist who has been radicalised in whatever way. And what this really points to is the appeal of ideology. And actually, that's harder to combat. You know, if you've got a terrorist structure such as Al-Qaeda with an identifiable leader and leadership group, you can target that group and it has a knock-on effect to the rest of the structure. You can't do that if people are simply, they find the ideology of radical Islamism to be alluring, right? So that's what they're saying. They need to bring in these specialists in psychology so they can sort of pick apart, they can profile, in other words, they can profile the types of people that it could be. Yeah.
Right, and they're saying that the kind of people who are now getting so influenced by ideology that they're then doing these terrorist acts, they're saying a lot of them are neurodivergent.
Yes. Yes. Autism as well is connected.
Well, I guess at least I'll leave the trains alone.
Could you help us with the definition of neurodivergent?
I think it's like a combination of what we've got. I'm not completely sure.
I think it's us. By the way, do you think if we formed a boy band, neurodivergent would be a good name for us?
No one would be able to spell it, and so that would limit your sales.
I've got another thought for a name for us. Problematic.
Problematic is quite good.
Who's going to play what?
You can be Gary Barlow.
I'll be Gary Barlow.
Yeah.
Okay. The talent.
I'll be Robbie Williams in that I'll leave the band after 3 years and have a better career.
Yeah, have more money. Yeah.
But I mean, look, being serious for a moment, it is important that we prevent future terror attacks.
Of course.
We've got to get under the skin of this problem, Andrew. Understand it and fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the move is a wise one insofar as these are the kind of measures you have to take. Who are the people who are likely to be targeted for radicalisation? Who are the people who are likely to find these groups alluring in whatever way?
Yeah.
But by the same token, you don't want to start making assumptions and going into the realm of pre-crime, where you it's more like what Robbie Coltrane did in Cracker. Where you sort of find you can build up a profile of the person even if you don't know who they are. But I would be very worried about making assumptions because, we've been down that dark path
you
before.
could be like, that guy can name all 700 Pokemon, he must be a terrorist.
Right, exactly. Although that I would be suspicious of.
Yeah. First gen I can do, but any more than that.
To your right. Other boy band names, not that I'm wasting valuable airtime. Men to Men, the Spice Boys. Boys Not Allowed? Answers on a postcard. Let's go to the Sunday Times now, and Boris Johnson is trying to channel his inner Margaret Thatcher, Jonathan.
Yes, indeed. So Johnson tries to claim mantle of Thatcher with wider right to buy. So Margaret Thatcher's 1980 Housing Act introduced the right of social housing tenants to buy the property they lived in. And now Boris Johnson is to announce plans to extend the right to buy to millions of people who rent from housing associations. So to me, on first listen, this kind of sounds like it could be quite a nice thing, quite a positive thing. I'm sure there are downsides that I haven't quite realised, but Johnson, I think, hopes to expand upon what is considered to be the Conservative Party's one of their most defining policies, which is allowing families to buy homes from councils. People are going to have a problem with it. I can't see any off the bat, but to me, it kind of seems like a nice move.
Well, I mean, I wonder if he's got one eye on his legacy, you know, because because the right to buy is something, when you think of Thatcher, her fans in particular think of that as sort of a defining moment. Maybe he's trying to sort of, you know,
jump on that,
skim some of the cream off that hot chocolate. Okay, well, that's not even a phrase, is it? I just made that up.
I think
that could be our band name.
It's a phrase, and we were all like, we will remember where we were when you came up with it.
Yeah, it's going to become really normalised.
I'll tell my grandkids I was there for the kind of skimmed
hot chocolate.
We've forgotten it already. So it wasn't that good a phrase.
It's already lost.
I thought it was weird about this article is that apparently Johnson is really interested in the idea of modular homes.
The flat pack house.
I've never heard of this. So it's like an IKEA kind of home where you can assemble it in a few minutes and it's got all the mod cons.
You build it, you have a fight with your wife. It's like a whole thing. It's just.
Do you have to have the fight with the wife?
You can't build IKEA furniture without at least throwing one screwdriver at your spouse.
Oh yeah, okay, no, that's fair enough.
From personal experience.
I was in an IKEA over the bank holiday weekend, and they have this example house. And I don't know whether I'm just an austere person, but I was kind of walking through this little tiny, it's a studio flat, really.
Yeah.
And I just thought that would do me, you know, if things didn't work out.
So you would live in
Dolan.
You would live in one of these modular.
Let's imagine, God forbid, that, you know, but if there was an elaborate gardening accident and I'm on my own, the IKEA scenario is good because you've just got you've got a little bed, you've got your cot, you've got wardrobe, dishwasher, fridge, kitchen. Let me tell you, by the way, that in the IKEA showroom, that toilet is not plumbed, as I found out to my horror.
I'm glad you've raised that. It's a nice image.
I've been banned from IKEA Wembley and Edmonton.
You should
There are plenty more IKEAs.
Watch and learn. But I think that this is a totemic policy for the Tories, but is it sort of a reheated policy? Is it sloppy seconds, Andrew?
Well, no, I mean, they've been trying to do it for a while, though, haven't they? You know, and they've been trying to, I think even Cameron sort of tried, this article said that Cameron tried to do this in 2015, try and extend right to buy and make it easy, because it's really hard to get on the property ladder, you know? And
is it important, do you think, for young voters to know that they've got a chance of getting onto the property ladder? You know, could this be a good move for the Tories, who are famously supported mainly by older middle-class Brits?
Sure. Maybe that's the point. You're a young voter. What do you think?
No, I think it could. I think that is definitely a concern for young people in their 20s and early 30s wanting to get on the property ladder, maybe not feeling like they have the resources to do so. And if this can help them do that, then fantastic. And it might sway people to, you know, coming around and voting Conservative. It might not.
Andrew, I want to get ratings up.
Yeah.
Can we talk about something fun and sexy, which is stamp duty?
Yeah, stamp duty is a killer, isn't it? Everyone always tunes in for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's gratuitous. I'm grabbing viewers. What are you
Yeah, this is really cheap of you, but let's do it because cheap is your watchword. Sorry, I didn't mean that. That's really rude.
I think it's true.
Not that jacket though. That's plush. So this is a survey apparently. So 4 in 10 people believe that stamp duty should be completely scrapped and replaced with capital gains tax on homeowners' profits. And what this effectively does, it shifts the tax burden from the buyers to the sellers. Could end up being massively expensive for the sellers because you're talking a lot of money here. But I suppose it makes sense. I mean, I'm not surprised remotely that most people think that this is a good idea because, particularly if you're a first-time buyer, we're just talking about first-time buyers, this stamp duty is another cost, another prohibitive cost when it comes to getting on the property ladder. So I can understand. I think this actually does make sense because already, if you're the property owner, you've made money off the increased valuation of the house over time. So why not be taxed on that element?
So if your house, God forbid, decreased in value over a couple of years, would there then be no tax to pay at all in the transaction?
That doesn't happen, does it? Unless you live.
I know someone who sold a house after living in it for 6 years for 10 grand less than what they bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Hampstead. And it's
the world's worst property investor.
Yeah.
Was that Donald Trump?
No, but he does have a Donald Trump hat, if I recall. So yeah.
That's just bad luck. I think this is clearly a fair.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
Once we've got through the cost of living crisis, and evacuated ourselves from the pandemic, hopefully resolved the war in Ukraine, housing is going to be a major issue in this country, isn't it? Particularly for younger people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the one thing that you continually hear young people talk about. They will never have a house. It's not possible. They'll never have. And that's, of course, where your ultimate wealth is rooted, isn't it? It's your biggest asset.
And aspiration, social mobility.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point about buying your own council house in the 80s under Margaret Thatcher. This gave working class people a chance to have an asset, invest in it, borrow on it, and do stuff with their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a dynamic policy, which
really
I think
important.
changed society, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's massively important. I think Johnson, you know, if those intentions are right, then he's maybe doing the right thing, but I'm just a bit sceptical as to why he's doing it now.
Well, there you go. Sceptical is what we do here on GB News and on Headliners. Lots more to come in part 2, including Imperial measurements, bad cops, and difficulty in defining a woman. Sounds familiar? See you after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Welcome back to Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers. Tonight, in the company of the hugely talented comedians Jonathan Cogan and Andrew Doyle. And don't forget, Andrew Doyle is back in the hot seat for Free Speech Nation tomorrow at 7. Sunday's independent now, and the government may be about to light a big Brexit bonfire. We don't do grammar anymore. Tell me more.
So, Brexit bonfire of EU rules set to spark chaos for UK business, ministers warned. So, lawyers and trading chiefs warn against blanket changes that could make British goods and services unsellable in Europe. So, Jacob Rees-Mogg, who is a Brexit Opportunities Minister, is said to have told the Cabinet that he plans to introduce a 5-year expiry date for around 1,500 pieces of EU regulatory legislation.
Yeah.
So, I think the issue here is that by attempting to get rid of all these legislations and have more deregulation, the worry is that this is going to cause a load of other problems with either new rules or having to kind of still trade with these countries that still have their own regulations, but we no longer have them. So it might make us untradeable with. It just might make everything a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
But again, it might for some things help, and other things it might make way more complicated. It's hard to make sweeping statements about it.
Yeah, and Tobias Ellwood, I don't think helped, did he, this week, Andrew, by suggesting that the UK re-enters the single market. The bottom line is that, Brexit has happened. I voted Remain, but unusually, I accepted the results.
That's a weird quality of yours, isn't it?
I also, and this, by the way, is not founded in any kind of political insight or ideological genius, but my view is that if you're going to do Brexit, let's do it properly. Let's have the full fat, the big kahuna, let's have the trade deals, let's control our borders, our money, our laws, and etc. And for me, a sort of half in, half out Brexit is the worst possible scenario. And I say that as a Remainer. But it's important that we stop having these Brexit battles and just make the best of it, don't you think?
Yeah, I would have thought so. I mean, with this, I mean, the article doesn't say which specific laws he's talking about, which regulations, and I would like to think, they're not just going to ditch an existing regulation that has made it into UK law, which is something that we approve of or think is important. I think it will be more selective than that. I mean, this was a real... I think you're absolutely right, Mark, because this was the number one reason we left. I mean, the poll, the Ashcroft poll, immediately after the Brexit vote, revealed that the number one reason, above immigration concerns, was that laws that govern this country should be made in this country. That was the main reason why people who voted leave. It was sovereignty. It's a matter of sovereignty. And, it's very difficult to determine how many of our laws originate from the EU. I mean, analysts say anywhere between 13% and 60%. It's probably somewhere in the middle, so something about 35. So a third of our laws, essentially, and regulations. And so, therefore, I'm with you. It's absolutely... Why don't we untie a lot of this stuff? I mean, it's got to happen eventually, and I'm all for it.
Indeed, and I think many that voted for Brexit will be as well. The Independent on Sunday now, and the government... I've covered that story, haven't we? Sunday Times, and one of the positives of Brexit, the Imperial measurements strike back, Andrew.
Yes, so... The article is about Imperial ambition won't do away with metric measures. So basically, this is shopkeepers will now be able to show the Imperial measurements alongside the metric measurements, but they have backtracked a little bit. So the government's watered it down a little bit. I mean, I was always a bit confused about this because the truth is, it's a gesture, it's posturing, isn't it? Really, it's a bit like, but it's one of those things that plays into the hands of the people who are sort of still so staunchly about rejoining the EU. Because remember when we had the blue passport thing and everyone was saying, well, you lot all voted to leave so you get your blue passports back. I mean, no one voted for that reason at all. Similarly, no one voted to get Imperial measures back. It just seems like a silly policy to me. I mean, look, Jonathan, do you know how many ounces there are in a pound?
Oh, yes.
Go on.
152.
So this is what we're dealing with here. Like, I just don't think people...
What, the Rain Man here? These are not a normal member of the public.
I'm neurodivergent, all right?
I don't think people know.
Spice boys not allowed, men to men. Here's the thing, Andrew, which is that I agree no one voted for blue passports, but they are now symbolic of, totemic of the fact that we're out, and that's why people are fond of them. It's like flags. They don't physically do anything, but they represent something.
No, I get that. I'm not trying to.
And I suppose this is a test case for the fact that we're out. Is that if we want to, we can have ounces and pounds. It's also a bit like getting rid of the awful GDPR warnings when you go online.
Oh, and that's
so annoying.
That's a really important thing that we absolutely should do. And all of the EU's attempt to regulate the internet, we could do away with that as well. Although we're trying to do something even worse through our online safety bill. But I mean, absolutely, I take that point that these gestures they're harmless in of themselves, but it's not the same, is it, as policy regarding regulations and laws? Because that's really, really key to our severance from the EU.
It's not a trade deal with the United States.
No,
it's not substantial policy.
Right, and I just think this idea. I just don't like this idea of playing into the hands of the critics. Because next it'll be pounds, shillings, and pence, and then we won't be able to spend anything because no one knows how to do that.
What you
no one knows what a shilling is.
The blue passport thing and the ounces and pounds. It makes the Brexiteers look silly,
right,
and is an open goal for those who want us back in.
Right, exactly. That's all I mean.
I think that's a fair point. And then actually, do the public really care about ounces? And
they don't know. They don't know how to use them.
Not 1 ounce.
Yeah. Whisper it. We quite like metric. Who knew?
It's easier.
Yeah.
For someone like me who's bad at maths, it's easier.
Well, exactly. I mean, Andrew Doyle, 12 centimetres? And that's just his forehead. Now, let's crack on with another story. And the Mail on Sunday, another case of good cop, bad cop, Jonathan.
Yes, and so this is a story very close to my heart. So Scotland Yard chief suspended on full pay for 2 years over claims he used cannabis, LSD and magic mushrooms and refused to take drugs test because he feared it would embarrass the Met if he failed it.
Oh my goodness.
Now, off the bat, that's a great excuse to be afraid that you're going to look bad if you take a drugs test. If you could just not do any test because of that reason, you'd be golden. So Commander Julian Bennett, who wrote the Met's drug strategy, has pocketed around £250,000 after being taken off duty over hotly disputed allegations he used cannabis, LSD and magic mushrooms. Now, immediately, there seems to be a real stench of hypocrisy there, because if this guy's been put in charge of controlling these substances and, making sure that people don't do them, and then he's caught doing them himself or allegedly been accused of doing them, to me, that's a real problem. Now, personally, I think if people want to explore their own consciousness, they should be allowed to do so. But if you're in charge of making the rules, don't then do it and be a hypocrite. That's my thoughts. But also, he's saying his reason why he didn't want to do the drugs test is because he's taken CBD, which is it's a cousin of weed. And it kind of relaxes and gets rid of anxiety.
You have it in a form of an oil.
You can do it in an oil, you can do it in
and it's legal,
gummies.
Isn't it?
It's legal,
CBD
yes.
Is legal.
Yes, it's from hemp rather than...
can you rub it into your naked
You rub it
skin?
wherever you want. Yeah. There's ointments, there's probably suppositories, there's all kinds of things.
Why are we giving people tips? This is what we should be doing.
Subscribe to my CBD blog if you wouldn't mind. But he's saying he didn't want to do the drugs test because he'd taken CBD and that would come up on the test, but apparently that's not even how it works, and he should have known that.
We should say, shouldn't we, that he disputes these allegations. He doesn't...
Allegedly.
Did anyone identify how much money he spent at his all-night garage in the same period of time? How many bottles of Diet Coke and packets of
Snickers? Grateful Dead DVDs,
Pringles.
I think. Yeah.
I think this is a waste. Because I'm sure he didn't take these drugs, but if he had taken LSD and cannabis, magic mushrooms, he could have solved some cold cases, couldn't he?
Well, I don't warm to him anyway because, his nickname is Sacker, because when he was on disciplinary hearings, he had a reputation for firing as many people as possible, so I don't warm to him anyway.
It's not a very creative nickname, is it?
No, it's rubbish. They could have done a lot better.
Mr. You're Fired has a more snappy nickname.
Yeah.
Or a pun on Alan Sugar, something.
Exactly.
Well, the thing is, he does dispute it. I guess if you're working around...
You've copped it?
So you're just thinking of various puns now, aren't you?
Spice Boys... Boys not allowed, men to men.
Why are all your boy band names so homoerotic? What's that all about?
Boy band?
Does your wife know about this?
I'm sitting on some Dark Secrets.
Yeah.
That'd be a good name for the band.
Dark Secrets is good, actually.
Now you're talking. Again, problematic, but what can you do? Good. Well, look, we shall assume this man is guilty until no.
Other way around.
What an absolutely disastrous disclaimer that was. I've accidentally sent this man to the chair, haven't I?
Yeah.
Let us assume this man is innocent until proven guilty. We got there in the end. Thank God this isn't live. Sunday's Times now, and that age-old question is back. Andrew, what is a woman?
I get so bored of this question now. So this is the civil service this time. So this is an article about... A video has leaked from a training session that went on at the civil service by a group called Agender. And the video has an activist, it's always an activist, who's gone into the civil service to talk to various civil servants, saying things like the woman or female cannot be defined. The dictionary definition of woman is bigoted. All this absolute nonsense. You've got quotes from people who've been in these sessions calling it propaganda. We've known that there's been a problem in the civil service for a long time. There was a really good article a few years ago by Nick Busvine, who was a former diplomat. And it really broke the seal of what was going on in the civil service. And he said he described it as positively Orwellian, that you had to get in line with these policies, with these social justice policies, of which this is an offshoot. And it goes for all of the main sort of race, gender, sexuality ideas, and it's not just treating people equally, it's this very ideologically driven thing which actually ends up separating everyone and taking us backwards. But it really infected the civil service.
The organisation is called Agenda. So
it's called Agenda. Well, they say agenda, but yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And they do. It's really important that the civil service is impartial. The civil service can't do its job unless it's impartial. And the problem with this stuff is you can't vote this out, right? It doesn't matter if you have the Tories or Labour. You've got, if the machinery of government, the civil service, is operating in this way, we're going to get it no matter what we voted for. And this is really, really dangerous stuff. It's like having a religious cult at the heart of Westminster.
Yeah. I did think that the cult might be the word, you know, because it is like a religion, isn't it, Jonathan?
I mean, it's certainly ideological. I mean, when you say you can't define a woman, presumably by that reasoning, that would apply to almost any other word. And how can we even have a conversation if you can't agree on a definition of the word we're trying to discuss?
But why don't people stand up in those sessions and say, sorry, yeah, we can define a woman. Any moderately intelligent 6-year-old can define a woman.
Sure.
This is an absolute joke. And the reason they don't is because they're scared, because if they stand up and say that, they're not the ones who are going to get promoted next time. Everyone's cowed in this way, and more people need to start standing up to it.
And if they call you a bigot, say, well, you know, you can't define bigot. And that's what I would...
Well, there's that.
Yeah, exactly. I could define a couple for you, but I don't have time. Let's have a look now at The Observer, and we all know the famous Christmas tune, All I Want for Christmas, is a copyright infringement, Jonathan.
So Mariah Carey being sued for $20 million over All I Want for Christmas Is You. So the songwriter Andy Stone claims he co-wrote a song with the same name and did not give permission for it to be used. Now, just from reading this article, this seems a bit of a tenuous claim, but I'll let our viewers decide. So Stone claims that Mariah Carey and her collaborators knowingly, willfully, and intentionally engaged in a campaign to infringe Stone's copyright for the song. Now, that is a bold claim, but apparently the songs have different lyrics and very different melodies. Yeah. So I don't know what his claim is based on there, other than perhaps the name. I mean, this is a problem that is rife within the music industry. A lot of people write similar melodies, or they write similar chord sequences, or even you know, song matters, but that is the nature of the art form. Some people have parallel thinking, and there's only so many chords that sound good together. There are only so many melodies that sound good, so there is going to be overlap, but apparently these two songs don't even have the same lyrics or melodies. So
it sounds like he's trying it on, Andrew.
Oh, hasn't got a case at all. There's no copyright on song titles any more than there is on film titles or book titles or anything like that. I mean, this is absurd. I mean, you know, I can get it. You know,
right, because your next book's called War and Peace, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. And I'm using Tolstoy as a pseudonym. I hope that's all right. I'll shift a few copies that way. But this, I mean, it is absolute nonsense. I mean, sometimes you even have sort of, like you say, in music, sometimes you accidentally hit on something that someone else has done.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you had, do you remember the Robin Thicke case where the Marvin Gaye estate sued Robin Thicke over the song Blurred Lines, even though the songs sound completely dissimilar. There's no similarity at all. That was absolutely absurd. Made millions.
The Marvin Gaye's estate won that one?
Yeah, they won it because they claimed that it was similar to an old Marvin Gaye song, and it absolutely wasn't. And similarly, there was the George Harrison one, My Sweet Lord.
My Sweet Lord, which was
Sweet Symphony.
He's So Fine.
He's So Fine. There was Tom Petty and Sam Smith. And actually, you know, you listen to the Sam Smith song, and it is pretty much the same as the Tom Petty song. It's just slower. But I don't... And he won that case as well. I think there was a settlement, there was an agreement. But I think you're right. Sometimes it can be accidental. Sometimes it can be plagiarism.
Absolutely.
But titles... No, in fact, do you know what? Just to spite him, I'm going to release a single called All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Under which band name? What are we going for?
I think we go with Men to Men. I like Men to Men, actually.
I think so. Until we transition, I think that's a good working title.
Yeah, I like it.
And look, it is an issue in creativity. I call it parallel thinking. You get it in the comedy circuit, where, let's just, as an example, 10 years ago when Sat-Nav came out, every comic thought they were the one that had this idea that what happens if the Sat-Nav talks back to you and has a mind of its own.
It's an obvious trope.
And so, you know, you're out there, you do it, and then someone's like, wait a minute, no, that's my material. It's like, no, it's just what it is not a very original idea, which everyone's having a go at. The other one that I've heard constantly, I've heard some really big-name comedians doing the gag about when you go onto the loo on the train and then the doors open slowly.
It's like a prize.
You're revealed like a prize.
Yeah.
A number of comedians I've seen doing that on their specials.
Yeah, and it won't be copying. It will just be like exactly what you say, parallel thinking. Sometimes there have been cases where people have quite clearly lifted the whole phraseology and the beats of a routine. It happened with the Australian version of Britain's Got Talent, I believe, where he literally just ripped off a comedian's, and it was a British comedian. I think he thought he'd get away with it.
It happened with a friend of mine who complained about this, and then he got taken to court for defaming the guy who stole his joke.
Right.
That was the whole thing. I won't say names, but he knows who he is, yeah.
Depp Heard, eat your heart out.
Yeah.
Kogan McIntyre. There you go. Oh, well, lots more to come. After the break, killer hamsters, angry eco-warriors and evil Disneyland employees.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan and welcome back to Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers, tonight in the company of the brilliant comedians Jonathan Cogan and Andrew Doyle. The Metro next, and should some of the nation's favourite shows get a new diverse look to cover to reflect the changing times? Andrew?
Well, they already have. This is the thing. It's weird, this. I mean, this is actually an opinion piece that's in the Metro. Yeah. But specifically talking about Coronation Street. And whoever wrote it has calculated the percentage of ethnic minority people within the show, and they say it's not sufficient. 15% as opposed to Manchester's population, which has 25% ethnic minority. So it's an odd one to... You know, I think, you know, going back a couple of decades, when you'd watch these shows set in central London and everyone's white and you think this is ridiculous. I mean, that is ridiculous. So you know, there was a cause to be followed and a case to be made. But we've sort of moved beyond that. And, you know, if you look at the BBC's output, the representation of sexual minorities and ethnic minorities is disproportionate. It's over what the national average, actually. So we've done this. Representation, it's sort of done. And it's getting really boring. It's getting really boring now. When all people do when they watch a show is count the number of people who fit into certain demographic boxes. I mean, you're not enjoying the show for what it is.
Does it have the potential to backfire?
Well, a lot of people, well, it really does, actually, because people start to notice race more than we used to, you know. So when people watch adverts now, everyone notices that virtually every couple is a mixed-race couple, which, of course, isn't reflective of the reality. And you understand why advertisers want to do that. And there is a feeling that we're sort of correcting past injustices and that kind of thing. So I understand all of that argument.
And the idea is they'd like to overcorrect. So that it's actually, it doesn't have to be proportional to the BAME community.
Sure, exactly. And I think you should hire the role that's most appropriate. And I don't care what ethnicities of people on advert. I mean, it doesn't matter. I understand the gesture, but I think there's something very sad, deeply sad, about the fact that, you know, when I was growing up, we would watch programmes which had a huge diversity, and we just didn't notice or care because we saw people as human beings. You know, my favourite show as a kid was Red Dwarf. I didn't notice that two of the main stars were black because I didn't care about that. Yeah. And now we've reached a point where when you see diverse casting, you think, I see what they're doing there. They're trying to, you know, and it's to me, that's a really sadness. I'll tell you what it is. It's the re-racialisation of society, which actually ends up making society more racist. It makes us more divided. It makes, it encourages people to see everyone else first and foremost through the prism of skin colour, which I think is a real step backwards, to be honest.
Yes, and also you mentioned advertising. These corporations want to demonstrate how woke they are, how caring they are, except that a lot of tweets that have been going viral this week are of companies like BMW, who have a rainbow logo on their sort of BMW logo's got a rainbow background in Europe, but not in the Middle East.
Right.
Is that, well, you can't have it both ways. You're either very pro-LGBTQ+, or you're not.
I think the flag, the rainbow flag, is useless in a country which already has equal protections for gay people. Fly that flag in Saudi Arabia. That's what I want to see. And I want to see those corporations do that. And by the way, Disney, which is always going on about this woke stuff, they removed a black actor from the Star Wars poster in China because there's a real problem of anti-black racism in China. No, make him the main thing on the poster in that country. You know, actually do something that means something. Don't hector people in a country where we've already reached this wonderful position where most people don't judge people on the basis of their skin
And if
colour.
you're worried about slavery, do something about people that are making mobile phones in China, committing suicide, or making T-shirts for £1 a day.
Right, absolutely.
Or jackets like
But of course, it's much easier to topple a statue of someone who's been dead for 300 years.
Yeah.
Rather than actually do something that might help someone's life today.
Yeah, too right. Who knew? Go figure. Well, now let's have a look at the Daily Mail, Mail on Sunday, and a story about savage hamsters. Scary stuff, Jonathan.
Very scary. So this is bad news for Mark's sex life. So scientists accidentally create super vicious hamsters in a lab after gene editing experiment goes wrong and makes aggressive rodents chase, bite, and pin each other down. I mean, this is how it starts. This is how the zombie apocalypse starts. You make some super aggressive mammal, it then bites someone else, they get super aggressive. This is basically the plot of 28 Days Later. I'm a bit worried about this. Now, the whole idea of this was to try and make hamsters that were more social, more friendly, less aggressive, but it's just gone completely the other way.
Yeah, well, if you've read Michael Crichton, you know where this leads. Stop playing God. Stop playing around with the genes of hamsters. I was bitten by a hamster once. It was pretty unpleasant, and I can't imagine if it had these kind of pumped-up, aggressive qualities.
Hamster.
Yeah, a beefy, you know, burly hamster.
4 foot tall hamster, ready to...
Just stop it. Leave the hamsters alone. That's my message.
I mean, if they wanted to make them less aggressive, they could have just given them soy milk or something like that. That would have really just sort of lowered their aggression and made them...
Just get them drunk. Get the hamsters drunk if you're worried about it.
Right. As yet, no comment from the actor Richard Gere. The Sunday Times and the eco-warriors are out at it again, and it seems the only thing they're letting down is themselves.
Right,
Andrew.
I'm worried about this story because it does give people tips of how to deflate people's SUV tyres, and this is a new group called Tyre Extinguishers, and they're an environmental group, and they've come up with this way where they can insert a mung bean into the cap of a tyre and then it lets the air out. I don't quite understand how it works.
It would be a mung bean or a lentil, though, isn't it?
They can't let it go, can they?
No.
They just do that, and it's really annoying. I mean, I just sort of think, you know, that you're sort of impinging on people's lives. You don't know what they need the car for in the morning. What if there's an emergency? And, you know, again, we were talking about protest earlier. Just, you know, stop damaging people's property. Talk to them about it.
Make your arguments. State your case.
Make the argument. Make your placards. Do your silly dance or whatever. But stop ruining people's lives.
I think they've just taken out their internalised hatred of themselves onto other people. If I had to guess, because that's what I did in my teenage years. But it's such a petty move. And they leave flyers as well, very self-righteous flyers.
Yeah. Amen to that. I couldn't agree more. Well, let's go to another story in the Sunday Times, and yet another thing that is supposedly killing the planet, Andrew.
Oh, yes. So this is pregnancy. In pregnancy, apparently, the nitrous oxide, which is used as an anaesthetic for pregnant women, is really bad for the planet. And this and experts are now saying that epidurals are better for the environment, but there's a greater risk to patients if they do that. But this is effectively people saying that you need to offer pregnant women in labour an environmentally friendly choice for pain control. Now, the thing is, I've done some research into this, childbirth can be quite uncomfortable. And with that in mind, the last thing on your mind is going to be your carbon footprint.
Can you imagine that? You're just screaming in labour, like, well, have you thought about this guy? Just like, give me the drugs, make me feel okay.
Is it just me, or do women overstate the pain of childbirth?
It's a doddle. It's an absolute doddle.
It's like 3 out of 10.
How many women have stepped on Lego barefoot in the dead of night?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I call pain.
That is.
Yeah, it's all I'm saying, Mrs. Dolan.
They have no understanding of how... No, of course. I mean, look, I just think it's really... And do you know what the best way to protect the environment is? Don't have children.
Yeah, that's
what they want. That's what you should do.
There you go. Well, no nitrous oxide here. Let's move on to the Sunday Mirror, and someone on the internet is branding as the most evil Disney employee.
Oh, yeah, this story is infuriating. So a Disneyland employee has been branded as evil after ruining a proposal and snatching the ring. So I saw this video, and it was infuriating. So this man
I think we've got the video.
Oh, do we have the video?
Whilst you're discussing.
All right, let's have a look.
Let's just fire that one up. Faye is busy at work loading that one up. We can talk over that, so tell us what's happened.
Okay, so the man is proposing to his... What? Okay, you just saw what happened there. The guy, he runs up, snatches a ring, and then gestures them in the most patronising, smug way that they need to do it over there. He was waiting for that moment his entire life. It's such an annoying move.
Party pooper, health and safety. What was the reason for moving this?
Apparently they weren't meant to be there. However, the man had already actually asked permission to be there. Imagine that guy, smug guy, ruining your moment like that. Wouldn't you just have to grab him by the back of the head?
It's just a job's worth, isn't it? Although that said, if you're going to get married with that fake castle in the background, it's pretty tacky.
Oh yeah, it's the most basic thing you can do. But I still believe in their right to have that moment and not be interrupted by that.
Whatever happened to discretion?
Exactly.
Yeah, I blame the pandemic. But moving on. Let's have a look at another story in the Sunday Mirror, an ill-timed joke. Andrew.
Yeah, so this is a 10-year-old. He's been held in a detention centre for 3 weeks after he sent a text to a friend with an image of an assault rifle saying, I bought this, get ready for Water Day. I think Water Day is like the equivalent of muck-up day, you know, the last day of term sort of thing. And of course, this is after in the wake of the shootings in Texas, emotions are running really high. But this is a 10-year-old who was making a joke, right? We have to calm down. You shouldn't be... First, you absolutely shouldn't be arresting 10-year-old children at their attempts at humour, OK? And if you actually thought that there was a risk here, you would find another way around it. He was handcuffed, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mad. It's absolute madness.
And it is sort of the death of comedy, isn't it? Everything is now taken literally.
Well, I mean, it is, because the sheriff said the fake threat could have real consequences.
What does that mean?
It couldn't. No, it couldn't. No. It's a joke in a text. I mean, these people are losing their mind. We're just getting more and more. We're getting this idea is being disseminated that words and jokes lead to real world harm. No, they never do, and they never have.
Jonathan, one last one, and actually this is probably our most newsy and hard-hitting story. Gemma Collins, the reality star, is in love with a ghost.
Yeah, so this is the Daily Star. So Gemma Collins has Ghost in her home, but allows him to stay because he's friendly. There we go. That is the hard.
Ghosts are never friendly. You know, these are supernatural beings that can.
Well, they're not benevolent, are they?
Well,
no, not in the films I've seen.
Oh, wow.
You know, they cause all sorts of... Well, there's a particularly nasty ghost in that.
On the train one?
Yeah.
That scared me silly.
I think she needs to get an exorcist. I honestly, I don't know what she's playing at.
She got a medium, and apparently the medium said it doesn't need to be exorcised because it's a friendly ghost who just likes the house.
No, don't dabble in the occult, Gemma Collins.
It's a bit scary.
I'm going to go over there and splash holy water all over the house, because someone's got to deal with this, and she's clearly not.
Yeah.
My immediate reaction is say, oh, she's just crazy or whatever, but I know some very reasonable people who say they've seen ghosts, and in every other respect, they're just very logical.
Well, look, congratulations to Gemma Collins. Apparently the couple are going steady now. He's got an agent, and it's the best sex she's ever had. So each to their own. My sincere thanks to the marvellous Andrew Doyle and the brilliantly funny, wonderful Jonathan Cogan. Gentlemen, it was a cracking hour. It flew by. We'll do it again tomorrow. That's right, Headliners returns at 11 p.m. for the next day's papers, and I'm in the hot seat from 9 for Mark Dolan tonight. See you then.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories,